Hello, Evans, and thank you for joining us. Okay, so Fiifi, you can proceed.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Evans. Hello, Debbie. So my name is Fiifi Boateng. I'm a strategic communication consultant, and I'll be your facilitator for today's session on branding for nonprofits, developing your brand for nonprofits. Basically, we'll go through some phases, we'll go through some areas that are necessary for nonprofits and will come in essential if you're a nonprofit and you are considering rebranding as well. It will help you to also critically assess the work you do and how you are perceived and how you want to position your nonprofit as also. So without wasting much time, if you could allow me, I would like to share my screen and then we can get right to it.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Nice. All right. So please, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
You can use the chat box or the reaction button to give thumbs up or respond to some of these questions I might ask. So, like I mentioned, welcome to I Learn Saturday, and today's session will be on developing your nonprofit brand. And my name is Fiifi Boateng. So before we proceed, this session might be a bit interactive. I would like to find out what you understand by a brand, or when they say branding or when they say brand, what comes to mind or how do you understand it? You can share your views or you can share your reactions in the chat and I will read them. You can also raise your hand and then I'm sure you're allowed. Okay, go straight into the chat. Okay, yes, the session is being recorded. Perfect. So, Evans. Okay, so if there are no feedbacks, nice. So Debbie is saying that a brand is an identity. Yes, yes. A brand is definitely an identity. So basically, in the simplest way I could explain it is how you are identified, or how you are perceived or how people see you, both physically and mentally or emotionally. The perception people have about you, how people feel about you, and how people think about you. That is a brand. So all this comes together to form your identity, like Debbie said. So a typical example will be, let's take you have a superhero, and I'm sure we all are aware of Superman. He wears a cape, he wears a costume, and he flies around saving people in distress. So for Superman, he has the hero brand, he has a hero identity. So for him, that's his brand. So normally when you say a hero, the first thing that will pop into people's minds is Superman. He has become the symbol of what a hero is. So, an example of a hero. Okay. So now that we have that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and watch a video. It's just 3 minutes. And then we'll come back and then we'll discuss. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'll start playing the video and then share my screen again. Okay. All right. Right. So I'm going to share my screen again, and then we can watch this video. Okay. Can you all see my screen and can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And I see the screen.
So sorry, I'm going to start the video again and then.
Fifi, could we pause maybe just a minute? Because like the video's playing, but we're not hearing it.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. So I think I know what the issue is. Just a minute, please. Sorry. Share sound. Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
You might not want to
Can
give
you
to
get the
charities
sound?
because you're
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, now.
All right, perfect. So
you might not want to give to charities because you're afraid your money goes to stuff like this. We get it. Which is why from the very beginning, Charity Water has always guaranteed that 100% of your money goes to providing clean water. No gimmicks, no catch. We wish every donation came with a plane ticket to see your impact firsthand. We can't swing that, but we can show you the journey of your donation. Welcome to Zimbabwe. This is just one of 29 countries with Charity Water projects. But no matter where your donation goes, the journey starts with dedicated people like these folks in green. They're our local partners. Think of them like the beloved characters in your favorite sitcom. You can always count on them, and they've been working behind the scenes for years leading up to your donation's arrival. They've been planning, training, and organizing how your donation can best be utilized. Except these aren't actors. They're scientists, engineers, and community leaders who've dedicated their lives to ending the water crisis.
Here in Zimbabwe, we have quite a number of these challenges. The overall goal is to provide services that last, so that will not be needed in future.
So let's break ground and get water flowing. Some communities get a hand pump like this that can serve hundreds of people. Each one has a committee of local users that make sure it's always in working order. If you live in a larger community, you might get a solar-powered pipe system. It pumps water out of the ground into these large holding tanks, and then the power of gravity takes over, sending that water rushing down to dozens of tap stands. It's like this whole community got transported into Oprah's audience. You get a tap stand, you get a tap stand. Everyone gets a tap stand, except you're Oprah.
That's unbelievable.
This solution can help thousands of people. It has a water committee too, but it's also really well guarded. And that is how your donation provides clean water. But stay with me now because the journey of your donation doesn't end here. You see, sanitation and hygiene are just as important. Things like hand washing stations, dish racks, and latrines protect everyone's health. Your donation helps provide the training for these folks to build latrines for everyone in the community. Let's be clear, we're talking about going number 2 here. Do you need more proof? Here's evidence. No, really, his name is Evidence and he's an environmental health officer for the district.
Once they have access to safe water, once they have access to sanitary facilities, they will live longer. We need community ownership. And once they participate, they own the project. Once they own the project, they will support the project. Once they support the project, we win as a team.
Okay, so now you're sure this journey is finally coming to an end, but really it just started. Your donation goes on a whirlwind tour that not only provides clean water, but gives futures to all these kids who can now go to school. It provides opportunity for women who can make their own income. So many lives are dramatically changed because of your decision to help. And that's truly where this journey begins. Whatever you can give, you can trust that 100% goes directly to providing life's most basic need, Help bring clean water to 40,000 people this holiday season.
Okay. Okay. So the video basically was an NGO, and I would just like to ask a few questions. So from the video, what do you think this NGO's brand is? If you can share something brief in the chat, and then we can proceed. Anyone? Okay. I mean, if there's no comments, that's fine. We'll come back to it. Oh, okay. I see there's a message in the chat. Sanitation. Maybe say clean water, wash, sanitation. Okay. That is true, actually. Yes, sanitation. And this is clean water. So basically, they provide potable water. I think, you read everything they had in the video. So we'll come back to it later. And then, based on everything we're going to discuss, and then we'll see how everything ties in together, to present them as a brand. So then, after this video, the next question is, what is non-profit branding? Per my experience in the sector, I've noticed that most non-profits don't put a lot of emphasis or none or no emphasis at all on branding. They focus more on writing proposals and applying for grants and all these things without focusing on their branding. So basically, non-profit branding in a nutshell means, or what it basically means is that how, as a non-profit, you are perceived or you are seen by, first of all, the community you serve, and then your various stakeholders around the world. How do people see the work you do? And you remember I mentioned that I asked after the video, what is the brand of charity water? And Debbie shared that it's wash, sanitation, clean water. And their mission is to provide clean water for communities around the world. So basically, that is their brand. And they sort of, show that in every part of the story they were telling, in several ways also. Then again, we might ask ourselves, why is branding important for non-profits? Why is it important for non-profits? Yeah, a few things to consider. As a non-profit, you need to brand to be able to attract the right kind of support. Branding allows people to be able to identify exactly what you do, how you do, and why you do it. And it's almost as if being able to be identified, amongst a large pool of people, So, for example, if you enter a room and everybody's wearing a white shirt, the first person you're going to notice is the one wearing the red shirt, because they stick out or they are different from every other person. So for a non-profit, the reason why you need to brand is to be able to be identified and to also to attract the right kind of support. And along the line, you realize that when your branding is right and your branding is on point, you might not even necessarily need to write grants and proposals anymore, because then first of all, you attract the right kind of partnerships, you attract the right kind of support from the community, from the country you are in, and also from even around the world. And secondly, you sort of become an example for other non-profits or other organizations who are sort of doing a similar thing that you are doing. I understand most non-profits have various thematic areas that they operate in, or they carry out their mandates in, but you have several people doing, for example, global warming, or how do you stand out as a non-profit, to be able to attract the right funding or the right support. That is why it's important, because at the end of the day, as a non-profit, if you don't have support, you can't carry on with your work. And to be able to get support, you need to be able to position yourself and in people's minds and hearts appropriately and properly, so you can, be able to push through and see your vision come to life. And at the end of the day, you also realize that when your branding is right, you don't need to write in a lot of proposals here and then, chasing every single grant that pops up everywhere. Things actually, you sort of attract, support, basically. In my local language, there's a proverb that says that he who climbs a good tree deserves a push. And climbing a good tree is also being noticed, because once you're up on a tree, everybody will see you, and they will see what you're trying to do, and then they will be able to, support you. So that's the whole idea behind branding. And I realized that there's a big misconstruction around branding, because most people think branding is, logo, colors, and all that, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. So we'll ask ourselves, so how do you build a strong brand as a non-profit? Here are, a few steps you can look at or you can consider as a non-profit if you want to build a strong brand. First of all, you need to be able to identify your unique value proposition. Your unique value proposition. You need to be able to know exactly what you are offering. And to be able to find that, you need to answer, be able to ask yourself this question: what are you offering the world? Whether you're working in a community, you're working, on a national level, or on a regional level, or on an international level, what are you offering? What value are you adding to the human race as a non-profit that you set up to, bring a change? And then you can also ask yourself, what impact are you making? What kind of impact are you bringing to the world? Or what kind of impact are you making in the lives of people? And being able to identify these things will help you very well in also directing your messaging, and also positioning yourself appropriately, and even help you identify the people that you need to serve. Sometimes, most non-profits are born out of they see a problem, and then they develop, they set up a non-profit to sort of tackle that issue. Yes, but in tackling that issue, what value are you offering? Because there are several people who are battling this issue of sanitation, or wash or clean water, and every year they face the same problem. So these are things we need to consider. What value are you offering? What are you offering to the world that is of good value? What impact is going to make? What changes is going to bring? Being able to identify this will really help in solidifying your brand as a non-profit. The second thing is also aligning your brand and mission with your values. Your brand with the mission and values. Basically, what this means is that as a non-profit, when you set out to carry out a particular task or carry out a goal, what you will need to do is you have your mission, you have your values. What the task or the activity you've decided to take on, does it align with the mission you are on? Does it align with the values you have as a non-profit? You can't say, and I'm going to use this example, you can't say you're fighting for human rights, and then when there's an issue of LGBTQ, well, you say, oh, that is not part of your mandate. You can't be a human rights fighter and then you select the kind of humans you fight for. So these are the kind of things you need to look at when you're as a non-profit, and and you're considering building a strong brand. You need to be able to align your mission with your values. You can't say one thing and you're doing the other. So these are some of the questions you can also ask yourself. How do you represent the mission? How do you represent the mission? And in this, you're looking at, when you set yourself out there and you're putting yourself out there and talking about the issues that you're passionate about, you're trying to solve, how do you represent it? Do you represent it as the savior who just come to take the solution, or do you represent it as someone coming from the community who's having the same problem and and dealing with it like about it, not because you want to solve it and have some glory? So you need to look at that. How do you want to present the mission and how you plan on getting to where you are going? Also, you need to also be an example of your values. Like I mentioned earlier, you set out as an NGO, as a nonprofit, to defend human rights, but you pick and choose which human rights you defend. You understand? And I think in your in such an organization, I believe some of the values will be equity and equal opportunity for all, non-discriminatory and all that. But then you sort of discriminate, so that might not align with your values. So you need to be able to align your brand with your values. So whatever you say or you speak, there should be hints of your values in there, or at least it should align with the values that you stand for, or you claim the organization stands for. And also, what perception does the community have of you? The people you are fighting for, the people you represent, what do they also think about you? These are things you need to also look at, because then they need to also know the value you bring to them as a group of people, as a community. And you create that impression in your minds. Because I believe that from the video we watched earlier from Charity Water, the people in Zimbabwe, when they see the Charity Water van or worker there, they know for a fact that they are there to help them deal with their water issues, or clean water, or sanitation issues. So you need to also have to be able to position yourself in a way that the community also holds or understands why you are there, who you are, and why you represent them. And that also adds to your legitimacy and of your brand as well. And then the last question I want to ask yourself is, are you what you do? So basically, I'll bring back the human rights issue. You say you're fighting for human rights, but then you're having issues in your organization, abusing your employees and all these things. It's more of the classic case of practicing what you preach. So if you want to have a solid brand or strong brand, you need to do that. You need to be what you do. You don't say you are a human rights defender, and then in the background you have all, you don't treat your workers well, you don't have good working conditions, you abuse workers, or you abuse your employees and all that. So these are things you need to consider. And the last but not least is articulate your non-profit's unique proposition well. And how do you do that? How do you articulate that to help build a strong brand? First of all, you do that through storytelling. And I'm sure that after the video we watched, if you have money, you'll probably give it to Charity Water, because they will be able to articulate, the value they are offering these communities that they serve appropriately. So storytelling, you need to do that through your storytelling. And because human beings, naturally we like stories, that there are things that we get attached to easily, and there are things that we are able to connect to. So if you want to build a strong brand, you need to be able to articulate your unique proposition through storytelling. And then another thing I also want to consider is visibility. So as a non-profit, to build a strong brand, you need to work hard on your visibility. You need to have a logo, you need to have a website, you need to have a social media presence. You need to be able to be accessible and reachable, basically. So when people are looking for organizations that carry out a particular mandate, they know that when they go online and they type, for example, human rights, or they type climate change, the organization should be able to pop up first. And the visibility is very important here, because it also leaves an indelible mark in the minds of people. That is why you have organizations like the UN, constantly being consistent with the colors that they use, which is the light blue, I believe, or the sky blue, and then in all their affiliated organizations that they have, or most of them at least. And you realize that all their logos sort of have a particular element, to let you know that these organizations are derivatives of the United Nations as a whole. So it is very important and key. So, and you have to be very consistent in that. And one last foundation that I need to point out here is that if you want to build a strong non-profit brand, it is important that you are consistent, and the consistency is king. because without consistency, you will not be able to achieve a strong brand. You need to be able to be consistent every single time, everywhere, with your message or with what you say you are doing. And that is the only way you can keep on reinforcing and ramming, your mandate or your values into people's minds. And that will help solidify your brand as a non-profit. And there's a famous saying, I think I just took a caption of it, that we are what we consistently do. I see that there's a question in the group. Okay. So Debbie is saying that to be reachable, social media and website, but the organization does not have funding to maintain their website. What is the alternative for them? Perfect. So an alternative for them, if you don't have a website, it will be social media. Social media is free. If you can't build a website, you can use Facebook, you can use LinkedIn, you can use Twitter as your website, meaning that that's where you publish every single thing that you do. And you need to make sure that whatever information you're always going to send out on these platforms, you are consistent in it. Even if you want to grow the number of followers, you have to continuously post every day. You have to be consistent. And the algorithm of social media is even designed like that, to sort of reach more people if you are very active on it. So yes, I understand and I'm aware of that. Website maintenance and website development is quite a challenge for most nonprofits, due to financial restraints and restrictions. So yes, an alternative would be to use social media, and it's free. So you can leverage on that if you have lean budget, to run your organization. I hope this answers your question, David. So the next thing will be in developing your nonprofit brand, target audience identification. Perfect. So as a nonprofit, if you embark on building a strong, solid brand, you need to know your target audience in the first place, because as a climate change activist or as a climate change nonprofit organization, who are you speaking with? Who are your target audience? Because knowing your target audience will help you, first of all, in so many ways, be able to know how to communicate with them, understand them, know what kind of things that they find as sensitive and what kind of things might attract them or draw them to, rally behind you to support what you are doing, to increase the impact. So you should be able to identify your target audience and understand their needs. It is very, very key, being able to identify your target and understanding their needs. So I'm going to give an example. A typical example will be, if you are a human rights, I'll use a climate change. So if you are a non-profit fighting or operating within the climate change thematic area, you know that definitely well that your target audience will be people in academia, people who are passionate about the earth and the future, people, policymakers who make policies around, environmental protection and all that, and also individuals whose lives are affected by global warming or the climate change. This will be the target audience. Then you need to also be able to structure them or map them out carefully to know, because you might never be able to have a target audience or a target group that is homogeneous. Half of the time you have them, and there are several people, several groups within a larger group, and they will all have different needs as well. So you need to be able to identify them. And how do you identify them? You should be able to have like the audience personas or profile that I just did. For example, being able to identify that, okay, if you pick the people who want or who are interested in climate change, they are, first of all, someone who cares about the planet or the earth, someone who cares about the environment, or someone who is directly affected by the global warming. For example, farmers who now can tell or predict the rains to use that to farm, because now the global warming and everything has sort of affected, the seasons and all. These are the people, or this is the kind of target audience you are targeting. And how do you reach them? How do you communicate with them? In what format do you communicate with them? So if you're looking to build it, one of the things you need to do is be able to identify your target audience, and which is very, very key in this regard. The next is also to find your brand personality and voice. So if I ask you, or if anybody can tell me the video we watched earlier on about charity water, what would you think their brand personality is? You can put it in the chat. You can put it in the chat. What do you think Charity Water's brand personality is? And if you can even go as far as even telling us what their voice is, or the kind of voice that they have, from the story that you read. From my end, the personality they have is like friendly type. They have a friendly personality. You get it, and they're a bit playful as well. That's the kind of personality I get from them. And then the voice they have is very welcoming, it's very trustworthy. They sound very convincing, because in the way they say every donation you make, every single dime goes to the community, goes to helping the community. That's the kind of personality of voice I get from them. And if after this you can go ahead and check all their documentaries and their page and how they post, you realize that they are very consistent, whether it's a video, whether it's a social media post, caption, or whatever. That is how they go about their mandate. So know your audience, what they care about. And I think I spoke about this earlier on, because once you know your audience, you know what kind of personality to present to them that will be able to attract that. I see there's a message in the chat. Evans is saying a brand personality refers to the set of human characteristics associated with a brand. These characteristics can include traits like sincerity, excitement, competence. Perfect. So this is a classical case. So if your nonprofit was a human being, what kind of personality would you want it to have? If you put it in this perspective, it makes it easier for you to be able to put all these points down and be able to work towards that personality, having that brand personality. And then you can assign a voice, how you're going to communicate from this point onwards to your target audience. And like I said, identify traits like playfulness, seriousness, innovative, caring, adventurous. And so my question will be that if you're supposed to give your money to someone, what kind of person would you be willing to give your money to support community, and you will be at peace? You'll not even think twice that, oh, this guy's going to spend my money, or this guy's going to. That's the kind of person you need to be, as a non-profit. So you need to identify that kind of personality and try and adopt and work towards that. And here we see again consistency across board. So when you're able to develop your personality as a non-profit, your brand personality, it has to be consistent across all platforms. You can't be speaking like a diplomat on LinkedIn and be speaking like a friend or a playful person on Facebook. Then you begin to start confusing people. They begin to disconnect. You understand? Yes, I understand. These platforms have different target audience also, or users, but as a non-profit carrying out money, you need to also be able to find a fine balance, and a fine tweak between maintaining a unique voice across all platforms. The next thing we're going to look at is the visual identity. So the visual identity here, we are going to look at logos, colors, and typography. So logos are sort of like symbols that you want to use to represent what you do as a non-profit. And as sometimes these things you need to sit down and discuss with your team to see what kind of logo. So you can't be a climate change or human rights activist or non-profit and your logo is a dragon. It has nothing to do with what you do. I don't know how you're even going to even connect the two. Yes, Evans. Evans has a question. I think you can unmute, or the host will unmute you so you can ask.
How can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Evans, loud and clear, please.
Thank you. My question is, what is the key point to know your audience as a non-profit organization?
What is your key point on knowing your audience as a non-profit organization?
Yes.
Okay, so one key point of knowing your audience is looking at the problem you have and identifying the people it affects the most. So you sort of do an order of impact. So let's say you identify human brutality, or let's say let me use rape. Perfect. Apologies if it makes anybody feel uncomfortable. So if you look at rape, you first identify that, okay, rape is a case, or even within your community, whatever problem you're trying to tackle, you look at the problem and you look at the statistics behind it, which people are being affected the most. And also, you also need to know that what do you want to get from what you are communicating, or the kind of brand you want to build. What do you want to get from it? Here's the thing. If you are looking for support, or you want your brand to be supported, then you know the people you're going to communicate to, your target audience, are going to be funders, they're going to be donors, they're going to be businesses, and they will be your key target audience, because then you know you're trying to communicate or represent an issue that's happening in the community to them to get their support. So then they'll be your key target audience. So when you're communicating for support, you know that, okay, for these kind of people, I'm trying to get financial support from them. So this is what I need to say. This is how I need to say it to be able to connect to them. If you are trying to speak to a community that's had several cases of rape or child abuse, and you're trying to get them, yes, I think Evans, your hand is raised again. You can speak, please.
Okay. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My next question is.
But did I answer your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I want to know if I answered your question, the first one.
Yes, you answered it. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
My next question is, can I treat my audience as a non-profit organization owner? Can I treat my audience like I treat costs, as I treat a company customer? Can I treat my donator as customer?
Good question.
Can I jump into this one, Fiifi?
Yes, Debbie, please go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Evans, I think what you probably would need when it comes to identifying your logo as well as your target audience is to actually develop a business canvas where you understand your quote unquote product, your services. Now, when you're understanding, like with your services, you want to know who are you trying to target to give your services. Like Fiifi basically said, if you are targeting, let's say the I guess the struggle of, like, you know, women being suffering that form of trauma, you know that your target audience are women, treating them as potential donors. Honestly, it's like hit and miss. You have to understand your, I guess, like your voice, as well as understand that each of your target audience have specific needs and specific wants. So what you give to, let's say, someone who is involved in children or youth, you could say youth development, or someone who's interested in arts and culture are two different things. You have to customize each of your, I guess, like each of your promotion, each of your branding, your newsletter, so that you can captivate your different stakeholders. So it's a matter of, once you understand who is your target audience, like who you want to service, you would be, I guess, like you will be at a position to position yourself so that you can then attract potential donors who identify with your mission and who aligns with what it is that you're trying to do.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect. So thank you very much, Debbie, for that brilliant submission. So I think you basically said everything. And yes, Evans, you need to do a stakeholder mapping. And then through that, you can be able to identify each stakeholder's needs also. And also that will also inform you on how to reach them. They will sort of, once we be able to identify the needs, it will tell you where you can reach them and how to connect to each one of them and what you need to say as well. So yes, thank you very much, Debbie. So to move on, so yes, you have your visual identity. Once you've been able to, develop that brand personality and voice, now you need to look at it, from the physical aspect. How do you want people to see, how do you want to graphically represent your non-profit brand? And you do that through your logo and also through the colors you choose and also through the fonts that you choose. The idea here is that people should be able to identify, if you have a strong brand personality, or you have a strong brand identity, and we take away your logo, people should be able to tell based on your color what organization it is, or even guess and be like, okay, I've seen this around quite a lot of time, and normally comes from this organization. So and the kind of fonts they are using and the way they sound, I think it's from these people. That is the whole idea. It's like when there's a proverb. Sorry, I keep sharing proverbs, but a local proverb that goes like, the one during the day, you don't shine light on them in the dark when it's dark. So basically, you should be able to get to the point where people can close their eye and even listen to some information communication from your organization and tell that, okay, this is from here. That is how strong your brand should be. And visually, this is how you reinforce your brand through your logo, through your colors, and you have to be consistent. So you can't be making social media posts that have like, a yellow color today, tomorrow you're using purple, the next day you're using green, the next day you're using yellow. Unless maybe your brand is a rainbow, then you can be changing colors like that. But half of the time, it's better to always have, at least maximum 4, 2 primary colors, 2 secondary colors. And I'm speaking from a technical point as a graphic designer as well. 2 primary colors that you use consistently everywhere, and then 2 secondary colors that you sort of interchange from time to time depending on what you're trying to communicate. Yes, so the visual identity will have to cater for that. And per my experience, even within the region and within Africa, I realize most nonprofits don't have what they call a brand charter, or I think in French it's called charte graphique. They don't have that, and it's quite sad. So for me, when I do audits of the visibility and brand of some nonprofits, I realize that when you go through their Facebook, you can tell that they have no brand guide. They just post anything and everything, and sometimes their logo is skewed, sometimes their logo is stretched, sometimes their logo is placed at the bottom, sometimes it's placed in the middle. There's no rules and guidelines. And once you're able to have this also, it becomes some sort of like sustainability plan, because then regardless of whichever graphic designer you have, once you have your charte graphique or your brand guidelines or visual brand guidelines, it is always consistent. So no matter who comes, they maintain or respect that and they apply that accordingly. So this is something we need to look at as a nonprofit as well. to reinforce our brand. All right. So I'll move on to the next. Now we're going to look at our brand message. And this brings us back to the audience. So you need to also know the right audience. You need to communicate to the right audience, and like Debbie shared, being able to identify the appropriate or the right audience will also inform how you communicate to them, because you can't be talking about girl child education to people who are more interested in wash or sanitation, water and what you call sanitation and hygiene. That's a mess, basically. That's a big mess. They might not fund it anyway. And sometimes I'm sure some organizations will face a challenge where they approach a donor and then the donor will tell them that, yeah, this proposal does not fit into our strategy or doesn't fit into our plan. It's because you did not do your homework properly. You did not do a research to find out whether the person you are proposing your project to or your plan to even aligns, has a program, or they align, or their values or their mission aligns with what you are proposing. So being able to communicate to the right audience is, getting the work half done. You get it. Being able to do that, getting the work half done. It makes it even easier, so you don't have to say too much. And then also presentation. Yes, in your brand messaging, you need to present it in a very visually appealing way. Sometimes we present, we communicate things and it's so cumbersome, you can't even understand. They use some colors, they use some text, some fonts, and everything looks so crowded. It's almost like instead of focusing on the message and that from the the post, you are trying to figure out what is going on with it, so you lose the attention of the person there as well. And also to reinforce your brand messaging, you need to also align or have the right partnerships. So as a human rights non-profits, you need to partner with similar or like-minded individuals or organizations. So you can be a human rights non-profit, and then you go and sign or use somebody who has a history of abusing people as your brand ambassador. Then your messaging is missed, because then we are wondering, okay, what is going on here? Are you for real? Just because the person has some visibility or some hype around them. So to be able to have some really good brand messaging, the partnerships also really make a lot of difference. You need to partner with the right people, the people that align with the values and mission that you're carrying out, and also communicating in the way that people will understand. And this is places where we tend to have challenges. Most organizations I've engaged with, they go with the one-size-fits-all communication, and that affects a lot of things. So basically what I've seen happen over and over again is that they do a research, they develop a report, and then they just post the entire report out there. Such reports, or they post it in this raw form in Word document or in PDF, no visuals, nothing. And it becomes a struggle to be able to reach your audience. And like we mentioned earlier, you might have a large pool of stakeholders, a large pool of target audience, but they might all have different unique personalities or different needs. So if you have been able to identify your target audience, like people in academia, people in policy making, or politicians, or in law enforcement, that for them, they might presenting a report in more of like a text or a PDF might be more appropriate for them, because they deal with a lot of documents reading and all that. But then if you're looking for young people to support your initiative, you need to also synthesize the report into infographics or into smaller bits that they can consume, understand, and even in the language they're going to use. It has to be simple, and you don't use vocabulary that it's used in academia, and people need to use dictionaries to find out what you're trying to talk about. Simple English. You need to find a way to talk to them in a way that they can connect and support, basically. So yes, and the channel, for example, most people in academia or most professors or most politicians tend to have or attract use the radio or TV as their channel of communication most of the time. So for them, you organize TV shows or radio interviews as a way of reaching people of that sort. And for young people, you use social media, to reach them as well. And for the community, sometimes you might use a community radio to also reach them. For people who don't have internet, you can work with telecommunication networks to be able to send them text messages or audios that they can listen to as a way of. So it's a full circle thing. If you want to solidify your brand message, it's a full circle. So the message itself, what you're saying, is important, and how you're saying it, which is the packaging, also matters, and who you're saying it to is key. So in your brand messaging, you need to look at these areas and tackle them accordingly. The next phase, or the next key thing, I think, I've mentioned it quite a number of times throughout this whole presentation, is consistency and cohesion. You need to say what you need to have an aligned message. Whatever you put out there has to align with your mission. So align your message with your mission, align your message with activities and your core mandate and your values, which is very important. So whatever you say or you put out there, and messaging might not just be text, it might be the visuals you put out there, it might be the graphics you put out there, it might be the videos you put out there, it might be the kind of partnerships that you engage in. These are all part of your messaging, because sometimes messaging is not just about the things you're saying, but the things you're also doing. It really adds up to your messaging and your brand messaging as well. So you need to align your message to your values. You need to align your visuals to your vision and your mission, so you don't have any disconnect anywhere. You don't lose your audience at any point, because people trust things that are consistent, or things that are mundane, or things that they can predict. That's the whole idea here, So your brand should be predictable one way or the other. Unless your brand is being unpredictable, then you can be, juggling things and mixing and confusing people. That can be your brand as well. But if you want to build a really strong brand, you need to have an alignment in there. You need to align, everything has to align appropriately. So your messaging, which is everything you say to people, needs to align. Also build partnership that align with your mission and values. And I think I mentioned this earlier on. It is very, very important. Work with people that have similar values and similar mission. It's easier, there's a lot of proactivity that will go on there, because they understand the assignment and what they need to do. Another thing is you need to become what you do. Becoming what you do is that you walk the talk, or you live it. And in that sense, you can't be fighting for people in some rural areas and you are living in the big city, and then writing articles, these people are this, you need to be part of them. You need to experience the issue. That way you can get insight and better understanding. So that is another way of creating cohesion between what you're saying and how you're saying it and all that. Because if you don't have depth in what you're saying and what the problem you're trying to communicate, people will see, it shows through over a period of time. And also keep and maintain all the above across all platforms. So whatever you do, there has to be that consistency across everywhere. So everywhere you find yourself, whether in a conference room, whether in a webinar, whether on social media, whether in a meeting, you need to say the same thing over and over again. You need to be able to communicate the same thing you've been saying all this time over and over again. And in the background, everything is aligned to your mission and your money. Sometimes nonprofits get derailed because of money or because of financial restrictions. So we find one organization that is working in climate change, and then they realize, oh, there's a huge funding for human rights, and suddenly they jump to that. Oh, there's a huge grant for so and so. Then they will jump to that. It becomes you don't become trustworthy. Everybody will say, okay, you're just in for the money, and it affects your brand as well. And having a really strong brand also, builds your credibility and your legitimacy as well, as we go. And then, like I said, practice what you preach, basically. All this I'm saying is just practice what you preach in the way you talk, the way you do things, and the way you engage with people as well. And then we have the last thing, which is monitoring and evaluation. How do you monitor your brand? So once you've been able to kick off, your nonprofit brand, doing all these things, having all these things aligned, how do you monitor? So sometimes from time to time, you can send out surveys to sort of give you, to the general public or to your constituents or to your stakeholders, to give you an idea of how they think about you and if your branding is working. So maybe in the beginning you ask them, what do you think about our organization? What's the one word that comes to mind? And then we'll write something, and maybe you are a climate change or human rights nonprofit, and you send out a survey. The first man will like, yeah, I think you're the people who take people to court, but that's not what you're trying to represent actually. And then after a few months, after you've been implementing your brand strategy, you go back, get a feedback and see if your brand strategy is working and see why it's not working, and then its effectiveness as well. So feedback is very important in monitoring and evaluating your brand as a nonprofit. Another thing you can also find is you're using your website analytics, or in this case, social media analytics. With now the social media analytics is so advanced, they can tell you the kind of people that have visited and their interest. So if you realize that all the people who are visiting your website or social media have interest in what you're doing, then you know that, okay, your brand is working and they keep coming back. That means that now they are sort of relating you to that subject matter or that area. So they come to you for research or information. And then the other thing is the brand health tracking studies. And it's quite similar to what I mentioned earlier on, how strong and how wide is your brand. And this, you test it both, within the community you're serving and also the people outside the community as well. You need to be able to give you a sense of how strong your brand is as a non-profit, and if you are actually representing what you say you're doing, and if that's how the people see you, it's really important that you do that. So you can, and this can be done equally through surveys and through interviews that you can run as well. And then in media monitoring, you also need to monitor the media, your presence in the media, how many times you're mentioned in the media, and when every time you're mentioned, what is the connection? What is the area of discussion that you are being spoken or mentioned as well? In which context is the media always mentioning your name or your organization? So these are things we need to also look at as a way of monitoring and evaluating our non-profit brand. And last but not least, competitive analysis, or what we call sector analysis. In this area, basically you look at what people in the sector are doing. Basically, so if you're doing human rights, you sort of look at how they're organizing the human rights in your area, in your community, in your region, in your country, and see how they are doing it, what they are doing, and how that compares to yours, and you can always find some lessons to learn as well in that way. And sometimes if you feel like if you collaborate with them, you can make a bigger impact. I think it's brilliant to go ahead and do that. Most non-profits I've come across have issues collaborating because everybody's trying to outshine the other in trying to solve the same problem, which sometimes I find a bit sad that, areas where they're supposed to collaborate and make real impact, they're rather competing. So you can do that competitive analysis to also check yourself and see who you can learn from and collaborate with as well. So, any questions up until this point? Kindly use the chat section or raise your hand, and the host will bring you in to ask your question or make a comment. If there will not be any more questions, we'll conclude with this. Oh, okay. Evans, please, the floor is yours. I see you raise your hand. Please speak.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Why should I consider why should I consider other non-profit organization as my competitor?
Okay, so like I said, it's not. I use that to describe the type of analysis, but not to say that you need to identify them as. And you realize, let me go back. So you realize I said a competitive analysis, or and then to bracket sector analysis. So the reason why you are not supposed to consider them as a competitor, no, that is not what I'm saying. But you need to compare what you are doing to what you are doing, and see what they are doing better, and what you can learn from that. And if you realize that they have something you don't have, and there's something you can leverage on, you collaborate. You don't compete. You rather collaborate, because in this sector, it's development. You're trying to solve a social problem. There's no point in competing, So you need to collaborate more with organizations, and so they can have more resources to be able to make a bigger impact. So when I say competitive sector analysis, it's sort of a derivative, or something that has been adopted from the business environment. But within the non-profit sector or the development sector, it's competitive because you are comparing some activities or projects or impact with what you are doing. You get it? To see why this is better than this and what you can learn from it. It's sort of to be able to create an opportunity for you to learn and collaborate from your similar organizations that are carrying out a similar thing that you are doing. Sometimes some organizations realize that they don't have a lot of resources on their own, so they come together to form coalitions. And when they form coalitions, they are a bigger group. That means now they suddenly have bigger resources to support and fight for the same agenda or the same thing. So they are not supposed to consider them as a competitor. No, not at all.
May I
Just
also add on to that? Because Fiifi, I love your take on it, and also for Evans to add on to it. Within the Haitian community, I think when we think of competition, we think of it in the sense of monopolizing a sector, unfortunately.
Oh.
And competition creates innovation. Like basically in short, with what Fiifi said, competition create innovation. Whenever you're doing any form of business, you need to do a competitive analysis or a market research, basically, where you see who's on the ground that are doing things that are very similar to what it is that you're doing, so that you can learn from them, as well as so that, like, hey, if you're studying their, I guess, like their work, what it is that they're doing good and what it is that they're doing that could need a little innovation, maybe that is where you need to focus on. It's like, while you're learning from them, you also adding on to the market, you're adding on to your service, and then you then can differentiate yourself from what it is that they are already doing. So as well as competition also creates not only innovation, but it also creates a form of collaboration, like Fiifi said.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Yes.
I think you had a last question, Evans?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. You're welcome. So yes, so even that was, I guess it's now clear. I mean, Debbie has really wrapped it up beautifully in that way. And yes, so that is what I meant. So I think for non-profit, we need to look for more opportunities to collaborate rather than compete. And I know it's a common thing among non-profits because of also limited funding and how most donors, position grants and donations as well. So people are sort of forced or pushed to do that, but it really is not healthy. We need to, sometimes come together and, apply for these grants or this funding as a coalition, so we can make a bigger impact, actually, rather than, compete things. So yes, it is what it is. And thank you very much, Debbie.
Oh, thank you.
Evans,
And
I hope your
Evans,
question has been
for joining us.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And we hope to see you on the next following sessions.
So I hope I will be there.
Okay. Great.
Yes,
Thank
nice.
you.
So I forgot to present myself.
Please do.
At my preparation. I'm Evans Butchus. I'm from Haiti. I'm a graphic and web designer. I have a startup called BLB Systems. I create branding. I manage social media. and I create website also.
Nice.
And now I'm having my first non-profit organization project now. I am working for a non-profit organization. I'm building their website now.
Nice.
So by searching on the web, by navigating on the web, and I find this class, and then so I was very excited to be here today.
We're glad you actually joined us, and I guess for future reference and whatnot, we can also add you to newsletters so that you have, I guess, more information about it. And I guess I'll reach out to you if need be, because you are in the web development space. If we do have, if we run into nonprofits that are looking for web developers, we can always send them your way, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you again, Fiifi, and thank you, Evans, for joining us. And we'll see you on, I guess, our next episode, or I guess next session, I should say, of Iron Days.
Yes. Thank you very much, and I'm always happy to be here.
All right, then.
So, Evans, nice to meet you as well.
Bye.
Bye.